Welcome to the Answers Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello and welcome to the Answers Yes podcast. We are well over that 70,000 subscriber mark, and I just want to thank everybody for subscribing and the downloads. We're in our fourth year. I was just thinking I've interviewed over 300 people on this show, so I'm loving every minute of it, and just appreciate everybody and their efforts to keep us here. Hey, so I'm on a speaking tour this year, and I'm working with companies around the country. I did 3 this month, actually. I'm giving another one on Wednesday, and I've found so much joy and pleasure in this. And one of the things that I realized in preparation for these speeches to the companies, just spoke to a pediatric group of directors on Saturday, is as I start to do the work, I realize what I've learned in the last 40 years, I'm giving the information to them like a fire hose. I don't know where to cut it off, what not to say, because it's all good stuff. And I had today's guest on the line for a minute, just only a minute before we started. He said, fire hose. I'm like, yeah, I think both of our objectives is to give as much as we can, bring as much value. And it might seem like a fire hose. So open wide, be ready for it. I've got Michael Pedersen on the line today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. And congratulations. 300 guests, 70,000 subscribers. Holy smokes. Congrats, man.
I appreciate that. It's a labor of love. And the funny thing is, this show started because I wanted to build up my SEO for my wine import business that donates back to orphanages. And I know that podcast, especially when it's reposted on YouTube, gets great SEO. Well, the first show I started telling business stories and interviewing business people on show 2, 3, 4, and so on, and it's just taken off from there. But, you talk about value, and that's what you were saying before we got online. To me, doing this show has brought value not only to myself, because I've gotten to meet so many great people on the show. It sets me off for the week. We do these interviews on Mondays. I'm like, wow, I'm motivated and inspired. But the value that we've been able to bring to our listeners has been never ending. So, I want to thank you for being here. And just on quick glimpse of your bio and the things that you talk about are so important. Let's just hit through some of those. Look, if you listen to my show, I always ask people for their background. We're not going to do that today. We're going to jump right in, bring some, as Michael says, passion and energy and inspiration. So let's kind of work through some of the things that you talk about, like business growth and business marketing. I know they're 2 separate topics, but let's just kind of start diving in on this stuff.
It's interesting, Jim. So when you think about business growth and leaders, it all starts with your mindset. And I really have done this full circle, even with my content on LinkedIn. And I invite anybody to connect with me on LinkedIn, by the way. That's really my platform. But it starts in your mind. And, I work with a lot of leaders that do not have the right mindset, right? They don't. Yeah. And if you don't have the right mindset, then it's not worth talking about business growth, development, anything, because it's going to be an uphill battle. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that goes with not only leaders, but everybody. And we all have our struggles. We all have our challenges. We all have our failures, and we can talk about they're really not failures unless you quit. That's the only time it's a failure. It's a learning experience. But yeah, so when it comes to business growth, I love it. I'm all about that. But I've really kind of redefined my own being. And I think one thing that people are struggling with now since COVID is, you've got a different work-life balance. You've got hybrid, you've got remote, you've got people are traveling the world now and wanting to work, which is going to be my next endeavor very soon, by the way. Mm-hmm. So that has to fit my lifestyle. And I think a lot of people, it's not about the money anymore. Yeah. It's not about the money. And, right. I don't know how old you are, but I turned 60 in August. So for me, it's, it's times are going by real quick here. So
yeah, but important. You bring up a really valid notion about where people are at in their heads, right? And I'm 55, by the way, so I'm right behind you.
Right on.
And we're going to talk about fitness in a few minutes too, because I think it's important. But it's not about the money anymore. It's about how they feel, where they're going. I think people redefined their values and their goals during COVID. And they're coming out of this thing going, wait a minute. I spent a lot of time at home with my family. That's important. That felt good. That felt like the right thing to be doing. And by the way, I made a little bit of money. And I know a lot of people struggled, right? But I had some of the largest successes during COVID that I've had in my entire, 40 plus career. But at the same time, I was able to spend it with my wife and my kids, right? And live life with them. And I think that that's what you're saying is where people are going, like you said, even worldwide, we're looking for different experiences in our business endeavors, not just money.
Well, and I think it's a shift that people are making now. And it's one where it really is fulfillment, happiness. It's especially when you get into kind of your 40s and 50s. And I call it the second half of your life. And I just wrote a LinkedIn post today that'll go live in a couple of days about the second half of your life, because people resonate with that mindset of, and it's not midlife crisis. We've been sold this narrative, and you and I are in the same generation. This narrative, right? Go to school, go to college, get a job, get married, have 2.3 kids, have a white picket fence, have a dog, have a cat, stay at your job for 30 years. Well, outside of some of those things like the marriage and all that, although I am divorced, but outside of that, the 30-year job, that's non-existent now. That's a joke, right?
It's more like a 3-year job.
Maybe 3. And even for the CEOs, I speak to CEOs every day, and their job is on the cutting block every day.
Yeah.
So it really is a sense of like, what do we want out of our freaking life, And it really isn't the money anymore. It's and I think for a lot of people, when you have this remote environment, this hybrid environment, and you realize, hey, I can be very productive. And if an employer is forcing me back 100% and there's no reason for it, I'm gone. I'm out of here. And I think that's the great resignation, quiet quitting, all of those things that are happening now, right?
Yeah, quiet quitting is an interesting point there, because it's happening. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people are just blaming it. Well, COVID screwed us up. No, actually, COVID defined everything. And if you're not willing to, be a strong leader or an organization that's going to take care of its people, you're going to get quiet quitters and you're going to blame COVID. But the reality is you probably suck.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you see all these big companies with these massive layoffs, and in our environment, they might seem like big layoffs. In the environment of that company, it could be 1% of the total. Such and such company lays off 5,000 people, and people go, "Oh my God!" But then it's 1% of the total. And the bottom line truly is, and being an ex-athlete myself, it's all about performance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you are performing well, you will be one of the last to let go. Now, that isn't across the board, by the way, because people probably listening to me, wait a minute. I disagree with that. So you can't generalize a statement like that. But if you are providing value to a company, or if you work for yourself, you're providing value to the client, you're going to be successful. You are going to be successful.
That's right. I love to guess why companies do what they do sometimes. I don't have the time to dig into everybody, but like you said, 5,000 layoffs, that could be less than 1% of their crew. I think before COVID, in the last 20 years, we all got kind of fat and happy in our big corporate lives. I know I worked for corporate, man. We had thick carpet and everything. We were real fat and happy, and nothing was going to slow us down. But COVID almost forced people to take another look at their business and cut where that fat was at. And I think what they've realized is that on the other side of this, it's okay to trim that and go back to running a good business and having good business practices, and, not providing all this fluff over there. And like I said, guessing what people are doing. When I look at, as an example, and I don't know the ins and outs, but when I look at Twitter right now, they laid off all those people. To me, as a user, Twitter works the same today as it did before.
Oh, come on. Yeah. Jeez.
I mean,
for sure.
That's just in my world. And maybe somebody can debate that, but I still get on, I still post, I still get interaction. I don't see that they're falling apart. So anyways, I like turnover, because turnover brings in fresh ideas, fresh people. It forces you to analyze where you were at. Can you talk a little bit your philosophies on growth and some of these things?
Yeah. Well, number one, first and foremost, I'm going to go back. My whole life is mindset now, right? Like I really am that guy, the guy that everything I say circles back to mindset. So when it comes to growth, you better have a growth mindset. If you've got a scarcity mindset, if you're closed-minded, you're not flexible, you don't see the opportunities out in front of you, then growth is not going to happen. It will not happen. And if you're a leader that leads by dictation, that leads by, it's my way or the highway, and doesn't empower their people, then that company, you're going to be gone in your job, and that company probably isn't going to survive, right? So when it comes to growth, it really is all about, okay, so what are the opportunities that are out there that we're not capitalizing on now? And that doesn't mean, start creating a new division of your company. That doesn't mean creating new products, but it means maybe making products better than they are now. And then, in my book, I talk about customer experience. I talk about creating, customers that are evangelists for your business, that go out and tell everybody else about their experience with your company. So when you talk about growth, you've got to look at your current mix of the environment you have, in the sense of, you've got a product or a service you're offering. Is it the best it can be? Is it giving the customer the experience that the customer walks away and goes, holy smokes, that was unbelievable? And, and leaders might go, oh, that's not possible. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I mean, look at Amazon, look at Zappos back in the day, Nordstrom back in the day. Nordstrom literally has changed now, and it's a lot of the stores are here in Chandler, Arizona, one of the biggest anchor stores, closed. But back in the day, their customer service, no questions asked.
Yep.
You try something on, you wear it for a couple of months. Now, I would have never done that because karma comes back to you, right? But people were taking clothes in that were like 6 months old, and Nordstrom says, bring them back. But what happened, now, granted, could that be the demise of what happened to Nordstrom? I think it goes a lot deeper than that.
For sure it does.
But when you look at Amazon, for instance, and a lot of people will say, Amazon killed local business, Amazon's a bad, evil company, blah, blah, blah. No, Amazon made it freaking easy to do business with them. I have a package almost every day at my front door from Amazon, almost every day. That doesn't mean conspicuous consumption type of stuff, but that can mean subscriptions. I've got some food that comes to me, power bars that come to me every month, big box of them, subscription. So when you think of growth, I think leaders that are listening, and entrepreneurs even, what are you offering now? Make it the best that you can first before you venture out to other opportunities.
I think what you're really touching on, to be said differently, is you're solving, in this case, Amazon solving customers' problems, right? And those problems could be ease of service. Let's make it easier for people. Speaking of Chandler, I bought an off-road race truck in Chandler, Arizona, from a good friend of mine.
Way.
That's where his shop was at, right? You got a lot of off-road guys out there. Yep. But, when we worked on it back in the day when I was in California and we needed parts, when Amazon first started really ramping up their delivery service, I could order something in the morning and it showed up the same afternoon. Crazy. I was so blown away by how is this even possible? They were solving problems. That's how come I became a fan of Amazon, by the way, because we were always on a tight timeline. And as the owner of the team, I always had to buy this stuff, right? And they're like, oh, you can get this on Amazon. It'll be here today. I'm like, no way. Yep, it'll be here today. I'm like, okay. So they were solving our problems. Then all of a sudden it became a little bit of a habit. Like, well, I'll just go to Amazon. So, I'm not a huge fan of the big guys, but at the same time, if they're solving my problems, I'm going to gravitate towards there, right? And that's what we need to be doing as business owners, solving problems.
Well, and I think when you think of local, you think of geographic businesses, right? That are family owned, or they're not franchises, they're locally owned businesses. It's very tough to compete against the big boxes, but you can with better customer service, right? Mm-hmm. You can, because if you go into a Home Depot, and Home Depot is a great store, and you get a lot of retired people that are passionate about their department, right? Maybe they were a home remodeler, and now they're working in that section of Home Depot, and they know everything about it, which is incredible. But is there opportunities for the Ace Hardwares of the world, or the family-owned Ace Hardwares that maybe aren't that brand, that just, the customer service, how you treat people, you walk them out to the car, all these different things that you do. Is there room for that still? Absolutely. And I think a lot of these small businesses play the victim.
Yeah, they do.
And I don't want to sound like an asshole here, but I am kind of a no BS. This yellow book is kind of a no BS book, but it is true. Listen, it's a dog eat dog world out there. If you don't put on your big boy pants or your big girl pants and own up to what you're doing, then it's going to be a difficult ride for you.
Yeah, no, you are absolutely right. You mentioned Nordstrom's, and we're from the same generation. I used to shop at Nordstrom's for that very reason. At that time, I was working for In-N-Out Burger, which is my brother was the CEO for the last 35 years there.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
We also had the same philosophy as Nordstrom's. Like, if you're not happy with your food, bring it back. And I'll just say here, and I ran the busiest store in company history before I left there. We sold 1 million hamburgers in 1 year with that philosophy of, if you're not happy, bring it back, right? I'll tell you that it was less than 0.001% of the people brought it back. And you knew half the time they were full of shit, right? Like they ate half the hamburger, like, yeah, this doesn't taste good. I want my money back. I'm like, okay, I know you're full, but go ahead. Because the reputation that we built from that mentality, right? And this is just reinforcing your point that, oftentimes people want to play the victim card, but they also have a choice to ramp up their service. I know if I go into Ace Hardware, and we've got a couple here locally, that they're going to give me a little extra there.
Oh, yeah.
And that little extra, they might give me some insights about the paint that I want to purchase or the lawn equipment or whatever that I wouldn't get through Amazon. Then I'm going to say, I'm going to take an extra 15 minutes. I'm going to go to Ace today because they're going to get me exactly what I need instead of me guessing on Amazon and returning it, right? So you can have success over the big companies if you provide the service up front.
Well, and if you go back to Amazon, so here's something that Jeff Bezos, in my humble opinion, will go down in our history as one of the most touted CEOs ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Top 5 for sure. Well, he has a quote, and I used to tell this to my clients all the time on our first phone call. Here's what and half the time the people I spoke to said, "Who's Jeff Bezos?" And that's a whole nother story. I'm like, really? What rock have you been living under? But I said, here's what Jeff Bezos says. The company that's willing to invest the most to acquire a customer wins.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that not necessarily means money all the time, but that goes into the customer journey, speaking the customer language, solving all their problems. All of those things come into play that isn't just money. It's not just money, but that's so remember the early days of Amazon. So they were unprofitable for years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the market said, this is a losing company here. This company sucks. And Jeff Bezos kept going, it's about the customer, it's about the customer, it's about the customer. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if the number 1 in the world right now, but I know Jeff Bezos is top 2 or 3 wealthiest men in the world. So people need to understand that if you're solving a big enough problem and you do it the best, you will be successful no matter what you do.
We can literally turn the show off right now. If you heard that last point that Mike made, that's all you need to hear. No more, right? It's that important. What a great quote. I hadn't heard it put that way, and I didn't realize that was his quote either. But it's funny, as a consultant, and I know that that's what you do as well.
Yeah,
I've been asked to help companies turn things around. They know my In-N-Out Burger background, and I worked.
Incredible.
I was hired for a fast food chain in California, and they said, "Oh, we want to be the In-N-Out Burger of our world, right?" I said, "Okay, I can teach you how to do that, right?" So a couple months of learning and diving into, and when I came back, I said, "Okay, this is what we need to do, and this is what it's going to cost." Oh, the franchisees will never sign off on that cost. Well, you told me you wanted to be the best. Well, that's what it's going to take, right? Oh no, that'll never happen. Well, then I guess our work here is done because you're not willing to spend the most on the customer. What most people don't realize, I don't want to dominate this conversation, but
no, I love it.
Back in 1983, when I worked for In-N-Out Burger, and you have to know, this is public, if you work there and you're a store manager, you're paid on the profitability of the store. The owner of the company at the time, his name was Rich Schneider, and Rich says, "Look, I know this is going to make you happy, but we're going to take every employee and I was making $2.95 an hour at the time, isn't
that just incredible?
Right. 1983. He said, we're going to raise our minimum wage. And I think it was to $6. And then everybody that's already making a certain wage that's at a certain level within the store,
they're going to make a proportionate raise as well. Well, the store manager shit his pants. He's like, well, there goes all my profitability. My labor went from 18% to 28%. I'm not going to make any money this year. And Rich says, look, we want to be the best in the business. We want the best people. We want to attract them, and they will attract more of the best people. And within a year, you're going to be making twice as much money. And some believed him and some didn't, right? But they didn't have a choice. And if you know In-N-Out now, it is the most successful privately held fast food restaurant. No franchises. They're worth billions of dollars. And by the way, I think it's been said that the average store manager makes $200,000 plus a year. Store manager flipping hamburgers every day. Because to your point, Mike, and you made it, the company that spends the most on customer service wins. And that's what they did.
Here's another quote that I think is a really powerful one. I don't know where I heard it from. You can't save your way to success. You can't save your way to success, right? Let's cut back. Let's, every penny, it's, and as I've been working for myself for 40 years, 38 years. My last boss, I was 20 years old. So I decided at the age of 20, no more. So I've been on my own ever since, right? But so when you're an entrepreneur, you really need to think differently, right? Because it's all on you.
Yeah, every day.
In that yellow book behind me, I call it, you own your outcome. You have to own your outcome. And if you don't take that intensive responsibility on yourself, you're not going to be successful. A lot of people, empathy and compassion, there's a place for it in this world. I do believe that. I do. But boy, oh boy, when it comes down to business, buckle up and really, go in. It's a battle. Mm-hmm. It is a battle. And, some of the most successful CEOs in the history of the world even were ex-athletes. I wonder why, right? I wonder why, because the competitive nature, the no quit attitude, that I'll outwork everybody. Those things, if you translate that into a business, that's a pretty successful business right there, right? So I think when you go into a business and you're kind of playing that victim, you're kind of letting the circumstances dictate your outcomes, boy, you're not going to be around. You're not going to make it.
Yeah. And by the way, sometimes I think it has to do with where you place that empathy, right? If you're empathetic for your customers to give them more, you're going to win. But if you're empathetic to the employee that's terrible at their job and you just keep them around because you think it's the right thing to do, you're going to lose. Look, I want to talk about fitness. We got a few more minutes to talk about a few other topics, but I'm an athlete. I've been an extreme athlete in a lot of the sports that I've done, like off-road racing. I mentioned the trophy truck. I raced Spartan competitively. When I turned 50, I was third in the world for men over 50 in their ultra race series in Iceland.
Wow.
Mike, the point I want to make about that is my fitness plays an integral role in the success of my business and my mental strength. And I know that's your belief. So I want to hear your perspective on that, why it's so important.
Yeah, fitness has been a massive part of my life. I've been working out since the age of 10. Mm-hmm. I was a skinny kid. My brother was a Greek god, never touched a weight in his life. He was he was only 10 months older than me. And he was this monster of a guy. And I was his little shadow. And I got tired of being his little shadow. And so my stepdad at the time bought me a 110-pound weight set from JCPenney's.
Oh, yeah.
Drove me down. And I used it 2 hours a day, every night. After I went to school, did my sports, and then ate my dinner and went down in this dark, dungy basement. It was pretty scary, actually, for a 10-year-old boy. And I started working out, and I put on 30 pounds in the first 2 years. And people are like, what the hell's going, what are you doing? Right? Because that was unheard of back then, right?
Sure.
So fitness, fast forward now, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything, right? And
that's right.
We do know that the majority of business leaders out there are physically broken. They're emotionally broken, right? And that's why they need people like you and I, right? And so I come in right away and I see their physical stature and I say, whoa, what's going on here? And so I want to get inside their mind again, right? And find out what caused this, what's making you feel the way you feel that gives you the output of being 50 pounds overweight, can't walk up a flight of stairs without sucking air, all of that stuff. So fitness takes work, just like your job takes work. And human beings are lazy by nature.
Yeah.
The path of least resistance. Do you have a pill for that? Just give me a pill, right?
They don't want to do the work.
Yeah, and don't get me on to big pharma, by the way. That's a whole nother topic. But
No, we don't have to.
but you know, being the elite athlete you are too, we're kindred souls, man, right? Because my body weight hasn't fluctuated 5 pounds in 45 years.
Yeah.
5 pounds.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, screw you, dude. You'll get over yourself, blah, blah, blah. I don't say that to brag. I say that it's been a commitment to me my entire adult life. And people, you know, they want to say things like, oh, you're lucky, you got good genetics. And here's what I say, and you'll, being a Spartan guy, you're gonna know what I'm gonna say. I'll say, why don't you live my life for 24 hours and tell me how lucky I am?
Yeah.
Waking up at 4:30 in the morning to do my 1 hour cardio, to then eat my certain meal, then to go to the gym that night to do my hour and a half weight workout. Tell me how lucky I am. Please tell me.
I would be happy if I didn't have to eat egg whites for breakfast anymore, but you know what? It's clean protein. It digests well, gets me going for the day, and I can get a whole bunch of it in a short amount of time. Right. And to your point, you know, I got my workout in this morning. I'm going to do another one tonight, 2-a-days. Right.
There you go.
People don't realize the commitment that it takes to be healthy and be successful. By the way, I'm sure you've seen this. You go and speak at one of these corporate outings, you know, you're there to fire them up, and they're all sitting around at their tables eating donuts and bagels and all this fattening food and, you know, coffee with creamer or that 40-ounce, you know, whatever drink from that local coffee shop. It's like, no wonder you feel like shit. Right.
Right.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, there's some reality to that. And we've got to have clean body, mind, and soul to be successful in business. You might get lucky and have success, but eventually that catches up to you.
Yeah. I had a client up in Oregon that sold his company. And I guess in the scope of businesses, you would call it a small business. He sold it for 65 million, walked away with 50 million personally. Right. And I was a private fitness trainer working with male CEOs in their homes. So I've been working with men that are leaders for 35 years, long time. But back then it was on the fitness and mindset back then too. And this one gentleman was on the front page of the newspaper up there, the Oregonian, blah, 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 whatever, right? Poster child. And I went into his home, his $5 million home. And remember, that was 30 years ago. So that's probably what is it now? $20 million home, whatever.
Probably.
He opens his 15-foot door, creaks it open, and here he is. And I'm like, whoa, boy, 50 pounds overweight, horrible posture, had no energy. I sat this guy down and I said, you know, you got a lot here. Congratulations. That's awesome. You're not going to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Goes, what do you mean? I said, you might be dead in the next couple of years. He goes, what? And I go, how old are you? Oh, 61. And he kind of sat up like this in the chair. And I said, when was the last time you went to the doctor? I don't need to go. I'm healthy. Oh, my God. It had been 7 years since he had a checkup. 7 years, 62 years old.
Wow.
Just came on to $50 million of personal wealth. There's a guy right there. I don't know if he's still, well, I'm sure he's not around anymore. That was 30 years ago. But you know, I walked away. I worked with him for 6 months, did change a lot of his life, including his marriage. His marriage was broken because he was broken.
Sure.
I don't know if he continued on with it, but this is the common story with leaders, right? They're physically broken and mentally broken. Both of those right there. And they're interlinked, right? So you have you can't work on one without working on the other.
You know, in the day and age that we live right now, your health is your greatest tool to combat everything around you. That's my opinion. Maybe you agree, Mike, but you know,
I do.
With recession, with the pressure, you mentioned big pharma, all these things coming in on us, the best thing that we can do is be the best versions of ourselves, which means healthy mind, spirit, and body. That means meditation, good diet, working out. You know, I've had COVID 3 times, I think. I never got the shot. I didn't even know I had COVID the first time because it came and went so fast because I was the healthiest version of myself. I'm not giving medical advice and saying that's for everybody, but I know for me, I've had the best 3.5, 4 years of my life. I'm spending every minute I can with my kids. Business is successful. And I'm really proving your point, Mike, about how important health is, right? And by the way, that yellow book that he keeps referring to, if you're not watching this on YouTube, it says dominate your market. I love that word dominate because you can dominate your health. You can dominate your business. You can dominate what you do with your family and how you approach people. And that's not a negative word, by the way. That's a great word.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That book was a culmination of 30 years of my life. And the first chapter is a raw chapter called Don't Bullshit Yourself.
Yeah.
So I come out of the gate firing right out of the gate. And the bullshit yourself is being delusional on your health.
Yeah.
So the trainer and me wrote the first couple of chapters. Then the mindset guy wrote the next couple of chapters. Then the business growth guy wrote the next couple of chapters. And that's a culmination of the entire book.
You know what's crazy about that? I'm going to just keep proving all your points with my own personal stories. When I turned 40, I went to the doctors for my checkup, and he says, "Hey, Jim, you're about, you should be weighing 165. That's what the chart says." And I look at him. He's like 5'1", 200. He's 5'1", 200 pounds. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take that advice from you. Now, I was working out. I was gearing up to run a marathon. Jeez. I felt like I was healthy, but I was 192. Okay. But I felt good. 5'11". Okay. But I felt good. I thought there's no way, right? I wasn't as serious as I could be about my weight and my health right now. And for the last 5 years, like yourself, my weight hasn't fluctuated 5 pounds. I weigh 163 today. I'm the healthiest version of myself.
Wow.
Low body fat. I've been competing in Spartan. And
Incredible.
What my doctor told me when I was 40, which is 15 years ago now, I thought, yeah, you're out of your mind. But now I realize, I look back, I look at some of those pictures. I'm like, man, I was overweight, even though I felt good, like your CEO, right? I felt good. I felt healthy. I'm working out a little bit. I'm going to go run a marathon. That doesn't mean shit. What does your diet look like? What does your mind look like? What does your soul look like? And really, what does your health look like? So I love when people integrate fitness into the business discussion, because it's so important.
Right. Well, and I think the bottom line, if I can say one last thing to wrap this up, would be, you've got to get real with yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You've got to look in the mirror, that Michael Jackson Man in the Mirror song, which I do like that song, by the way. But you got to look in the mirror and you got to look at it through clear eyes, not delusional eyes, not blurred eyes. And you got to own what you currently have, accept it, but then have that burning desire to say, listen, I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm whatever I am. I got to have the best couple of years because for me, turning 60 in August, it's just a number. A lot of people guess me at 45, 48, 50, whatever. But I say that for one reason. I don't want to live this broken life, at the age of 70, where go to the mall, go to the movie theater, go walk around, your city. And when you see people that are in their 70s, they're walking around like they're 90. Mm-hmm. They have no energy. They're hunched over. And it could have been so different for them. It could have been so different. So I always say, live with no regrets. Catch it now before it's too late.
By the way, that's how I decide what restaurant I'm going to eat at. If I'm sitting there for food and I look around and nobody looks the way I want to look, I'm like, I'm out of here. We ain't coming back. And I'm not going to give a list of the restaurants that I do that at. But, I was like, this is a product of that environment. Mike, I've had so much fun with you on the show today. I would probably screw all your time for the rest of the day just to talk to you about this. But the book is called Dominate Your Market, No BS Impact Strategies to Explode Your Business Revenues, Have More Energy, and Get the Life You Really Want. I'm guessing we can get this on Amazon, but you're right, because we talked about it. But your website is dominateyourmarketbook.com. And I'm just, like I said, I'm thrilled for the interview and the excitement and energy you're bringing, and how important some of these factors are.
I appreciate that. And when you go to that website, dominateyourmarketbook.com, you can get the first chapter free, which is that in your face. So if you make it past the first chapter and you like kind of my vibe, then go get the book. If it's too much for you, no worries. Just good luck in your life. And hopefully you'll take some action. But so giving that first chapter away and knowing that the first chapter is really the most aggressive chapter in the whole entire book, that was ballsy of me to say, okay, I'm giving that first chapter away, but I want people to make a change in their life. That's really what it's all about. And I think a lot of us need that blunt, no BS approach, because that pampering approach doesn't really work too often, right? Like it doesn't.
It doesn't. And you know what's funny about all this, Mike? And we make a living at this, and we're happy to do it. We're happy to give back and provide value for people. But if you listen to this show, you could get the two tidbits that we gave. One was the quote. The second one was to be healthy. And the third is, if you just read the first chapter, you don't need anything else. The problem is we're lazy. We want to be pampered. We want to be strung along. We want to convince ourselves over 6 months period of time that we can do this. You got it. The reality is all this shit is for free. You can get it but you need us to remind you on a daily basis, which again, we're happy to do that. But thank you for giving away the chapter of your book. I'm going to read that chapter, by the way.
You got it, bud. Well, I'll mail you a copy. Give me your address and I'll mail you a copy of the book.
Oh, you got it. You got it. Because I'm excited about it. So, hey, thank you for tuning in, Mike. Thank you for being here. If you enjoy the show, please share it. I'm going to put Mike's website in the show notes, so you've got that. And I really would encourage you, if nothing else, get that first chapter. Right on. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to today's show. It is my pleasure and honor to interview all of the guests that have been on the Answer is Yes podcast. If you have enjoyed the show, please go on iTunes and subscribe, give a rating, or simply tell a friend about the show. We also believe in the message of our guests and the positive influence of their stories. As my own mentor and coach, David Meltzer, has taught me, spend some time every day thinking and writing about the things in your own life that you have more than enough of. You will find out how blessed we really are. Please visit my website, livelifedriven.com, for the latest updates about me and what I'm doing. Plus, I post a monthly blog about the many topics on this show. This podcast can also be found there. As I learned early on in life, what you believe is what you will achieve. Thanks, Mark Victor Hansen, and thank you, and have a great week.